Welcome back to Better Than Before. I want to talk to you about when's it time to move on. You know, a lot of people struggle with being in a career, being in a job, being in a situation long term. And one of the issues that is most difficult for people to deal with is how long is that supposed to last? And what does that have to do with me leaving? Or when should I move on to something else? And some of it has to do with the paradigm in which we view relationships. And some of it has to do with, as kids, you know, we're brought up to never be a quitter. So when we decide to no longer participate in something, even in a job, we sometimes feel badly because we feel like we're quitting, and that's worse than the results we perceive the relationship is yielding. So as employees, we hang on because it's like, I can't be a quitter. I can't be a quitter. So I got to hang in there. Maybe things will get better. And then on the employer side, we believe that we can somehow rescue this person. And if we do something different, we can get better results out of them. And if I even knew somebody who would always say, you know, well, gee, where are they going to get a job? Like, we're the rescuer for that person. So as both employee and as employer, we believe our patience, love, and understanding needs more development, and this ongoing working relationship will help us develop ourselves and help us develop our patience, and it's good for us in some way. As employers, we believe we made a commitment to somebody in an employment situation, and we feel we have to hold up our end of the deal, whether they do or not. Well, let's start with the employee view first. Let's say it's a situation where you've given your best effort toward the relationship and no progress on results is being made, and you're asked to stick it out, and you're thinking, I'm going to do it because I'm not going to be a quitter. If you've given your very best effort to make things work in the job and decide to move on, that's not being a quitter. That's avoiding what is called the insanity of trying to do the same thing over and over with no better result. Also, staying in a job to have a job for safety and security rather than doing your best to rise to higher levels is not fair to you, and it's definitely not fair to your employer. You're both getting the short end of the stick. From an employer standpoint, the question is, do you believe that people should have a chance to succeed or fail on their own? Now, most of the time when I ask that question in a workshop, the answer is always, well, sure, I believe that. Well, if you believe that, you've got to create an accountability environment to allow them to do just that. You know, John Wooden said, where it comes to our friends and our family, the things that they could be doing on their own, they should be doing on their own. Sometimes we want to remove those chances of failing, and when we do, we're really not helping. We're actually enabling. Everyone has immense worth as human beings, and bad results does not equal a bad person. Love, mercy, and compassion are tools that we need to exercise when it comes to people. But when we turn things inward and put the entire responsibility on ourselves for delivering those components in a relationship, after a time, the situation turns abusive. The abuse isn't happening from the other person. We're creating the abuse. You might want to keep this in mind too. Abusive people who are unwilling to budge in their behavior don't change very often. Everyone knows a great story about an exception to this situation, and at the same time, that is what it is, an exception, not the rule. Everyone has free will and choices, and when a person habitually decides to use their free will for destructive purposes, you're not going to change that. Believing you can is setting yourself up to have more power over them than they have over themselves, and that's not the case. Only in the case where both parties are willing to give it their all in this area can real relationship transformation occur. Now, when you decide to move on, you need to have a good, honest, straightforward discussion with your employer about the fact that you're either looking for another job or you're preparing for another job or you're probably not going to be there much longer. And this is a conversation for some reason, probably because of some fear they have or some assumption they have about the evilness of their employer, they're just not willing to have. So they're going to drop the dime on them at the last minute that, hey, I'm out of here. Taking more responsibility than you should is pretty common with employers, actually. In one instance, I had a session set up with a client that I had where the business was in critical condition, and the client brought up the fact that one of his employees was better at handling certain issues and customer service questions than the person he had put in charge of it. So I said, why don't you drop your manager and give your better employee a chance to make your situation better? He goes, well, I couldn't do that. Where else would my manager go get a job and make the kind of money I pay them? We all want employers who care about employees, that's for sure. And my client was definitely in that camp. Now, at the same time, he was putting his whole company at risk by taking way too much responsibility for the employee who was not delivering on the job required, as the results were the evidence. If this particular company failed, which it did, not only would the manager be looking for another job, so would all the other employees and the owners themselves. Both sides of the deal have to be held up, not just one side. When's it time to move on? Actually, the first time you ever think about it. That's when it's time to go. This is Tony Richards saying I'll see you next time on Better Than Before, and everything gets better when you get better.
Thank you for listening to Better Than Before with Tony Richards, a business leaders podcast powered by Clear Vision Development Group. For more resources from Tony, visit clearvisiondevelopment.com. Join us next time for another episode of Better Than Before with Tony Richards.